Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about the top 5 Russian units in Broken Arrow. Starting with the humble Mi-26 Korova. It might not be the sexiest option on this list, but make no mistake, this helicopter is extraordinary in the context of Broken Arrow. So it has a great amount of lift capacity. It can carry a lot of soldiers, it can carry a lot of supplies, and crucially, it can carry armored vehicles. This is one of the things to understand about these heavy lift helicopters. If you're just looking to move infantry and supplies around, the lighter helicopters, the cheaper ones, well, not necessarily cheaper, but the lighter helicopters might be a better option because chances are they're going to be harder to detect than this gigantic beast. Though, to be fair, if you're flying at low altitude, you'll probably get away with an Mi-26. But the ability of transporting vehicles is a pretty significant factor. And not just any kind of vehicles. This thing can transport a lot because its cargo capacity, heavy lift capacity, is 20,000. So if we consider different vehicles that are available for the Russians, we can see that they have a lot of different vehicles that are available over here that are within that weight limit. So a BMD-4M is within that weight limit, but that's not necessarily the best option. However, a Cornet is a good option, or a BTR with a Cornet, as an example. An air defense vehicle that can mount Iglas on it, and many other such options. Well, not a BMOT, sure, that's pretty heavy to be certain, as are a lot of the guard tank units. But if we're looking at the kind of vehicles that are available over here, there is a huge number of them that fit within that lift capacity. So you can get anything from an IFV behind enemy lines, which is going to be pretty substantial, to something like an anti-air vehicle, an artillery option, light artillery to be sure, ATGM, etc. Again, not the best vehicle, but let me put it like this. If you're dropping a BMP-3 behind enemy lines, and then you're using that to ambush enemy units, that can be pretty nasty. Or just dropping artillery, light artillery to be sure, behind enemy lines, that is going to be a pretty damn nasty affair, because a Nana S can be dropped behind enemy lines. Again, not all of them, but enough to make a pretty substantial difference here, like, having a vehicle over here that has a whole bunch of surface-to-air missiles so that enemy helicopters and even planes get shot down behind their lines. That is a very, very nasty affair. So at number 5, it's the Mi-26. Again, not the sexiest option on this list, but still a really good one. Then we have the Su-57. Now, the way I view the Su-57, it's not necessarily an air superiority jet. Sure, it can do that role very, very well, though it's not going to compare to an F-22 or even an F-15EX because it just doesn't have the same number of missiles or the stealth profile of some other plane. So it certainly will beat, from my view, an F-35. An F-35. However, the value proposition of the Su-57 is that it can carry cruise missiles. So it's a fast stealth jet that can carry cruise missiles. On the American side, you have the F-117, which can do the same thing, but the Su-57 can carry more of these. So you can carry up to 4 cruise missiles, or you can have a combination of cruise missiles, anti-radiation missiles, or you can go down the path of having some cruise missiles, some anti-air missiles available over here. I mean, you're going to have some anti-air missiles anyway, because that's just part of the default package with the R-73s, but having a jet with that kind of capability makes it a really, really good one to actually use. Then, we move on. And it's gonna be, and if you understand something, the fact that I put the Mi-26 and the Su-57 at the bottom of this list should give you a clue of some of the ridiculous stuff that is going to be ahead. Next up, we have not the T-14 Armata, but the T-15. This thing is larger than most main battle tanks, or it's on the same level of most main battle tanks. But the ridiculous thing is, this is as armored as a freaking tank, as any Russian tank, because it's basically based on the Armata platform. It just doesn't have a tank cannon. However, when you look at this damn thing and the sheer damn size of this, you realize just how ridiculous this thing is. It doesn't have the same kind of anti-tank capability as a Bradley, sure, but it does have much better missiles, just not the same ammo capacity. However, it does have a 57 millimeter gun. Now, 57 millimeter is much bigger, obviously, than what Bradley has. So this thing will defeat the Bradley, straight up. It has an active protection system. It has anti-tank missiles. You don't want to meet this thing in a dark alleyway, because it's going to tear you to shreds very, very easily. And number two, we of course have the T-14 Armata. Now, the reason the Armata is number two, while it is an expensive tank, and it does have its shortcomings to be sure, it does have active protection built in, and it has top attack missiles on board. So when we're looking at this thing, when we're looking at this tank, we have 3 anti-tank missiles in the gun. That is just a ridiculous level of capability on this. So basically, the T-14 Armata can go up against any other tank and flat out win. I mean, the T-15 can probably do so as well. But it is expensive. Like, the downside of these two vehicles is the cost, the weight, etc., the size as well, with the T-15 as an IFV. But they're certainly worth it. So if the Armata, the T-15, the Su-57, and the Mi-26, if that's the list so far, what exactly goes at the top? What is the number one vehicle for the Russians? Well, surprisingly, it's not an infantry unit, it's not a plane, it's not a helicopter, it is a drone, specifically the Orion drone. Now, beyond the scouting capability, which is one of the reasons you should have drones in every single one of your decks and not something to be underestimated, the real value proposition over here of the Orion drone and the VDV Brigade, which should give you an idea of how good the VDV Brigade is in a lot of ways. But the value proposition here is with its ATGMs. Now, Americans do have a similar option. I just think, like, a Bradley or Marine Raiders are pretty damn good. But when you look at this thing, it's quite absurd what this has on offer. So you have ATGMs that you can install on it. You don't have anti-air capability on it, on these drones. So if we look at these kind of drones, we don't have that anti-air capability that you might see on American drones. The Russians have a lot of anti-air capability in other ways. But you do have an insanely good ATGM missile installed on it. And 4 of these. And it's very cheap. Keep in mind this. It is very cheap. It's got that range capability that comes with it. Cornets are just ridiculous missiles. There are some advantages with the Vacres, whatever, Vicars, I guess. But from my view, I think Cornets are just ridiculously good as anti-tank missiles, and placing these on a drone makes that drone that much better. So let's consider some options over here, right? When we're looking at helicopters, There's no helicopter, I think, that can really compare in terms of that capability. Or if it can compare in that capability, it's actually more expensive than the drone. So the valid proposition isn't just the fact that you have those and that anti-tank missile capability installed on it. It's also the factor of cost. So it is cheap, and that is a pretty big deal. Now, sure, you can get better ATGMs, Ataka ATGMs, etc. These, by the way, stopped the Ukrainian counteroffensive in 2023, or played a role in that, because Russian attack helicopters were able to fire these from a very, very long range and hit Ukrainian forces. But yeah, Cornets, they're really good. They're fairly solid in terms of their range that you can use them on. Or you can go with different other things like thermobaric if you want that. But personally, I just prefer it with Cornets. But you do have that range of options. You do have those sensors. So spotting capability as well as anti-tank capability makes this thing very deadly. And as far as I see it, it does do better than the American options. Because if we look at the American options, right? If we consider the American options in this respect, what you're probably looking is at the Predator or the Reaper. But let's consider the Reaper over here. You can get 8 Hellfire missiles. The problem is, while you might have 8 Hellfire missiles, the Hellfire missiles come nowhere close the capability that you're going to have on an Orion. And it's also going to be more expensive on a Predator or Reaper or anything along those lines, or you're going to have fewer missiles installed on it. So you either have fewer missiles that are worse, or you have more missiles, but again, they're just worse off. And that is the reason, from my view, that the Orion drone is genuinely the best drone in the game from a combined arms perspective. If you're looking for just scouting capability, sure, there's stealth drones, etc. But from a drone that can also act as an attack aircraft, basically, and probably better than most attack aircraft in the game as well, because spotting range and drones having a better survivability capability than jets or even helicopters makes this thing deadly. So that is my perspective on the best Russian units in Broken Arrow at the moment. Kostin, signing out.